If you're looking to level up your UX, content, or product design practice to confidently and joyfully tackle complexity, ask the million-dollar questions, and design digital systems that actually work, you are so in the right place. Welcome to the UX Level Up podcast. I'm Sophia Prater, and for over a decade, I've been teaching professionals how to make the most valuable and often invisible parts of UX gloriously visible. We will untangle the structure beneath the surface before jumping into screens, saving time, money, and headaches, and having so much fun doing it. Together, let's UX collaboration, break down silos, and build shared understanding that sets everyone up for success. Let's become the systems thinkers that our teams, and quite honestly, the world, are so desperately craving. Let's level up our practice and redefine what it means to be a UX designer. Let's jump into it. What is up, my big-hearted complexity wranglers out there? Today, I have a very important topic that I want to go deep with you on. And that is my answer to a question that I was recently confronted with. So I have the mantra that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. And I am recognizing more and more, I think I've always internally and subconsciously believed this, and this is just coming more and more to the surface. It feels like every day that also the quality of your designs are determined by the quality of your questions. And this question that was presented to me, and I will put the link in the show notes on where this question came from, but it was so profound for me, and I want to share it with you today so that you can have it to think about your products and your services and the things that you are bringing into the world with your creativity and with all of your genius. And then I will give my answer. So that question, I'll get to that in a moment, but I want to talk about rebranding the podcast first because it's connected actually. So we are doing a scary thing where we are rebranding the podcast. Basically, we're renaming it and we're putting a new cover image on there. That's about it. But I think that renaming the thing will change the thing, right? We talk about this a lot in the OOUX world and how important and difficult it is to name things. And what I am realizing is you don't need object-oriented UX. Object-oriented UX is a beautiful means to an end. And what I've gotten so clear on in the last 6 months to a year is what object-oriented UX and the ORCA process actually gives you, actually gave me. So there was a lot of reflection into why did I build this process? Why did I integrate this into my work? What problems did it solve for me? And then taking in a bunch of research on people that have gone through my programs, people that are integrating object-oriented UX, and asking them, what has this done for you? And recognizing perfect alignment into the 5 things that really, if you just kind of have to sum it up, right, into 5 beautiful things, the 5 things that impacted me the most are, surprise, surprise, the same 5 things that are impacting the designers and developers and writers and content strategists that are using object-oriented UX and problem solvers in general. And those are what I've been calling the 5 level ups. Maybe you watched the UX Level Up earlier in the year. That will be available. OOUX.com/level up is where you will find the recording of that beautiful 2-hour plus training. I think it's around 2 hours where I really get into those 5 level ups. But those 5 level ups, the 5 things that really have bubbled up to the surface when it comes to the value of object-oriented UX. Number 1, expanding your capacity for complexity, giving you the ability to take in more complexity and take it in faster with more grace and ease and actually fun. Number 2, asking better, stronger, deeper questions sooner. That reduces rework, that reduces headaches, that creates better products by asking the really amazing questions, what I call showstopper questions or million-dollar questions. Number 3, object-oriented UX and the ORCA process makes the invisible parts of user experience design and strategy and product strategy and problem solving visible. It makes the invisible visible so that, number 4, we can collaborate around it. 1, also so that for ourselves, we can put all the pieces out on the table, see what all the pieces are, move them around in a tangible way. It basically concretizes the problem in a way that is really great for our brains. So all the abstract stuff becomes a little bit more concrete, and we can basically do better strategy because we've made all this invisible, fuzzy or squishy stuff much more solid so that we can move things around. And then when we can do that, we can collaborate. So that's number 4, being able to collaborate cross-functionally, leveling the playing field, bringing everybody together around all those puzzle pieces that we've made nice and tangible and visible, so everybody can move things around, and that we can create designs that are just, we can create teams, I'll say, that are bigger than the sum of their parts instead of less than the sum of their parts. I don't know how many teams you've been on before that you feel like it's just like, we say too many cooks in the kitchen, right? But we're literally, you feel like you're moving slower and you're doing less innovation because of the team dynamic. It shouldn't be that way, right? It should be the opposite. As we bring a cross-functional team together with different disciplines and different superpowers, we need to become greater than the sum of our parts. And the tools that I teach, that I've created, help people do that. It's an amazing, beautiful thing. And number five is that we bring in ancient truths, ancient psychology. How does the brain work, and how has the brain worked for thousands of years? And we bring that into our designs so that we can create designs that work with the root of the human brain, right? How the human brain perceives and understands and gets things done and moves through an environment. We bring those principles in, okay? And that helps you make so many better design decisions. When the pencil hits the paper, when the pixel hits the screen, you can design in a way that you feel very confident that it's going to make sense to people. Sorry, I just yelled in your ear. That it's going to make sense to people. All right. So those are the 5 level ups: wrangling complexity, asking better questions, making the invisible visible, creating our own damn table that's inclusive and levels the playing field, and bringing in the ancient truths of just how humans perceive reality. Okay. And I'm just leaning into these more and more. Like, this is what my calling is, right? This is what my business is all about. It's not necessarily about delivering object-oriented UX and the ORCA process. Those are just the best tools I've come by so far, right? To solve those problems, right? And there's so many, we have so many needs as designers. This is not, I never have said that this is a silver bullet, right? There's so many other things that we need. And there's so many other people out there thinking about stuff that I'm not thinking about. But that is where I feel like my wheelhouse is. The gifts that I bring, the gifts this community brings, the people that are coming into this community, those are their pain points. They're the type of people who want to take on more complexity. They don't want to shy away from the complexity. They want better tools to take on the complexity. They're already the kind of people that just ask all the questions, right? And they want to get better at asking even better questions in a more diplomatic way with the better timing, bringing the questions in sooner, right? But they're the curious people. They're those strategic people that maybe can design a beautiful screen, but are way more interested in that strategy and structure part of the process. And people that want to collaborate. You don't necessarily have to be an extrovert to do that, all right? But people who want to bring the team together, who love relationships, who truly believe that once we get together, we can build just even more amazing things. And people who believe in humane technology that works with the human brain, okay? Okay, cool. That brings me to the podcast rename, which is the UX Level Up. That's it. We're just going to call it the UX Level Up, because what we're going to be focusing is those 5 things. And of course, object-oriented UX is going to be coming in all day, every day. It's going to be coming up, all right? But I wanted to expand our thinking and expand what object-oriented UX actually is, and really focus on how do we level up to what the world needs from us. And that brings me to the question. Okay, are you ready for it? Are you sitting down? This question: what does the collective moment need from your audience, from your users, from your customers? And how can you help them rise to that challenge? How can you help the people that you serve get unstuck? In what particular way are they stuck that you feel like you can help with, that your product, that your service, that your genius can help with, to get them unstuck so they can go be the human beings that the world needs right now? Okay, so this is the question. Another question that's very good is, what do your users need? That's a great question. We should continue asking what our users need. But this is taking it a level deeper. This is asking, what does the world need now from the people we serve? And how can we empower them to be those people that the world needs? Whoa, what a question. Just sit with that, right? If you're thinking about what you deliver, what you work on, the products, the services, the solutions that you're working on, if you kind of take it from this angle, your brain does beautiful things. Our brains are so good at coming up with solutions, but we need to prompt our brains, right, with really great questions. Just like we need to prompt ChatGPT and AI with really great questions. If we don't have great questions, we're not going to get great answers, right? We do the same things with our brain. And once we ask that question, the solutions, the answers arise. They start coming up. I'll say it one more time, okay? And then I'm going to get into my answer to this. What does the world need now from the people that you serve? And how can you help them rise to that challenge? Whew. That question just hit me like a ton of bricks. I don't know if it's hitting you in the same way. Let me know. Slide into the DMs. Let me know, how does that question hit you? What does that make you think of? And before you get into my answer, if you want to pause this podcast, do a little journaling, do a little thinking. Even if you're driving, that's a great time to just sit in silence for a while and give yourself some space to think about it. So I am going to go through my answer 5 times over, because it speaks to these 5 level ups. Because I can say, oh, the world needs people that can wrangle complexity, and people that ask great questions, and people that can make the invisible visible, and people that bring collaboration together, and people that use the ancient truths of psychology, blah, 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 blah. People need that. But what happens when I ask why? Why does the world need complexity wranglers? Why does the world need people who can do that? So that's what we're going to get into today. And I hope this gets you really excited. And then I'm going to bring it back down. I'm actually going to talk to you also why business needs this. Because we still live in the world of capitalism and business, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So we also need to make this very attractive to business. And I'm going to talk about that too at the end. Okay. Why does the world need complexity wranglers? Because the world needs systems thinkers, and systems thinkers are complexity wranglers. That is what I mean when I say complexity wranglers. You are a systems thinker, okay? So we need people trained to think big picture, to connect the dots, to think about relationships and dependencies between things, all right? Basically, every problem in the world is a result of some solution that somebody came up with without thinking about their solution in the wider context. I can say any problem. There's so many great examples of this. Cheryl Kababa's book, Systems Thinking for Designers, it's a Rosenfeld book. Her book is great, and she gives so many examples of this. Create a solution somewhere, it creates 18 problems in other places. Okay, so we need systems thinkers to be thinking about how these solutions create a whack-a-mole effect of popping up 18 other problems. I don't know why the number 18 is popping in my head. 180, 5,000 other problems in other places, right? So the world is becoming more and more complex. There's wacky data out there that we create, as much information every 2 days as was created in the first 2,000 years of humanity writing things down or something like that. You blink your eye and so much more information has come into our world. And we need people who can help organize that information. Not all of it needs to be organized, but the good stuff does need to be organized. We need to create structures so that the good stuff rises to the top. Okay, we can get into disinformation, what is true, all of that. But at the end of the day, we need people that think in systems so that we can prevent bigger and bigger problems. Honestly, I'm thinking we can prevent environmental collapse, right? We can hopefully hang on to some democracy by thinking in systems. All right. The world, of course, needs question askers in tech. People who are skilled at asking why diplomatically and gracefully, who can expose assumptions. We need this in tech. We need this throughout the entire world, though. And we really need people asking why. Why do we need this solution? What will happen if we design it this way versus that way? And also people asking why not? Why is a reason that we shouldn't do this? And this can save businesses a lot of money because so much of what we create when we're just thinking in features, we're looking at competition, we're quick to produce as feature factories, we end up creating a bunch of stuff that nobody really needs. And this is bad for business. All right. But this is also bad for the world to just be generating a bunch of stuff that no one really needs. So we also need people to ask why not. Okay. So we need the people asking those great questions, right? To come back to it, the quality of our designs are dependent on the quality of our questions. And if that is true, which I truly believe it's true, if that is true, because we can see it for our lives, right? We can see it when we ask great questions, we can come up with amazing answers. And if that is true about our designs, why is it not one of the most venerable skills of being the person that can ask the amazing questions? Okay, not necessarily the person that can come up with all the great solutions, but the person that asks questions in a certain way that gets the whole team thinking and can open up opportunities, can expose assumptions about things. This is such a power skill, all right? And the world needs it because when we design solutions based on assumptions, we get that whack-a-mole problem. We create a solution and 18 other problems show up. Okay. We also need designers that can go below the surface, that can take x-rays of systems, all right, that can see the underlying structure and see the misalignment in underlying structures so that we can create better structures, okay? We need designers who are going deep in those structures. And all of these, you will see all of these level ups build on each other, okay? So to go below the surface, you need those skills to see all the complexity below the surface. To see all the complexity, you need to be able to ask really good questions about the complexity to break it down, right? And so once we can see these misalignments with all of our complexity wrangling skills, with all our amazing questions, with our ability to go below the surface, to see those structures, then what we can do is we can start designing new structures that are so much more in alignment with user goals, business goals, and humanity, right? Where we want to take our human family into the future. Okay, why do we need designers who can bring cross-functional, diverse human collaboration together? Why is that important? All right, well, I kind of talked about this at the top, right? But this idea of designers who can level the playing field, who can bring departments and teams and roles and industries together, we can create, if we're doing this properly with collaboration and we are truly leveling the playing field and everybody can bring their unique expertise and experience toward a problem around a shared language, then we get something that is greater than the sum of its parts, which is what we really, really need to create new things, to innovate. All right. This is what we need for innovation. So we are not just regurgitating, which is really what's going to be happening. We're going to see a lot of companies. We're going to see a lot of regurgitation with AI, right? Because it's trained on us. So if it's trained on us, it can do some generation, right? But it's just going to be doing generation based on the things that it's been given. So if we want to create really new futures and new solutions and solutions that are not necessarily based on the solutions of the past, which have gotten us into a lot of trouble here where we are now, we're going to need that gorgeous cross-functional communication and collaboration that creates mashups, that creates cross-pollination between disciplines, between backgrounds. We need to be able to bring people together. And finally, why do we need designers who really understand how the human brain works? Well, it sounds a little bit silly, like, well, of course we need that. But when you really ask why, we get to some interesting bedrock here. And a lot of designers do understand how the human brain works. But there's nuance to this because there's how the human brain works to exploit how the human brain works, to create addictive systems, to sell more product to people that actually don't need those products or want those products, to keep people in patterns of spending, patterns of consumption. We are often leveraging how the human brain works to create toxic patterns in our designs, okay? And I believe more and more that it is up to us as the designers to understand how the human brain works from that perspective so we can see what's happening and we can say, oh, we've just created an addictive pattern, okay? And I'm going to talk about how extracting that and recognizing that and flipping the script on that is actually good for business. But once we can say what we want to do instead is we want to honor how the human brain works. We want to honor how the human brain works so that we can create systems that are humane, that don't make people feel dumb. That would be really nice. It's just so people don't feel dumb all the time using technology, right? Because it's actually built for humans and actually built for humanity, built for the shared future that we want, right? What do we want out of, our collective future together? So to really be thinking about that, I know a lot of this sounds, you might be thinking this sounds really Pollyanna, this sounds really naive. We're going to bring it back down to business, all right? But if you think about, one thing that I do think about is how we've designed cities, at least new cities in the United States. So you could say, of course, we're designing technology for humans. We're not designing technology for robots. But in a lot of ways, yes, we are actually designing technology for robots or for just numbers, right? We don't really think about, often we forget that our customers are human beings living human lives in three-dimensional space, and they're embodied in this world, right? And we can tend to forget that a little bit and move away from that. So we need designers who bring that back in, who bring that back into business and say, no, this is how the human brain works. And this is going to create products that people love, that they truly love and they're truly loyal to. Okay. Oh, cities, right? So when we think about cities, when we say, there are so many, like when I went to Venice a few years ago, and it is such a city designed for humans. It's almost like a museum because there's no cars. You can't have cars in Venice. So there's boats, right? So it's designed for boats. Yeah, it's designed for boats, but it's so beautifully designed for human beings, and the boats are kind of in service of the human beings. And you go to a city like Atlanta, I live outside of Atlanta now, and if you go to a city like Atlanta had a few decades where it was being built before cars, and then a lot of that infrastructure of our streetcars and our rail system was ripped out in service of designing a city for cars. So many newer cities within the United States, maybe all over the world, are much more designed for cars than they are for humans. And we're paying for that now, especially when you see suburban sprawl, you see these areas that people feel very isolated. We have a loneliness epidemic, and we can blame Instagram for that loneliness epidemic. But I think we've actually integrated it into our built environment, right? We've integrated it into the structure because we've integrated isolation into our structure. Okay. So this happens, and we're paying for it now. And it's a really hard thing to undo. And the internet is still young. We still have time to course correct here and say, you know what? We are going to design our technology, our structures, our philosophy for humans and not for tech, for humans. Okay. So that's what I think the world needs from the people that I serve. And that is what I want to help you with. I want to help you be able to rise to that challenge, to be that deep systems thinker that can handle a bunch of complexity and ask amazing questions and show everybody the puzzle pieces so we can make all that invisible, squishy stuff really nice and visible so that people can collaborate. We can bring collaboration so that we can create designs that are built for humans. All right. That's it. It's kind of a mouthful, but that is what I think that the world needs. And that is what I am so dedicated to helping you rise to that challenge in bigger and more exciting ways. Okay, so object-oriented UX is doing this, right? It's already doing this, but I want to talk a little bit about how it does it now and where I'm seeing the future going and what kind of like my hopes and dreams, right? So number one, OUX is known for being able to break down complexity in a way that is also creates holistic systems, which is just gorgeous. Chef's kiss. But more and more designers we're seeing are using ORCA for service design, for system of system design, for organizational design, for life design too, designing even their own value system. So taking the ORCA process and the object-oriented UX philosophy and moving it up a notch, moving it up a context level, right? So thinking about how can we even design communities with object-oriented UX with these processes? How can we design new government structures even, all right, or fix existing government structures? So this is already happening, and my mission is to help broaden this mission. My mission is to say, okay, we can use this for sure in our day-to-day work to make this page, this feature, this application much more humane, much more structurally sound, all that good stuff. But we can also start thinking about how we can bring this to a larger context. Okay, OUX is also notorious for helping people ask really amazing questions. We are doing that. The questions that save us from structural debt, save us from design debt, save us from technical debt, save us from a bunch of rework, a bunch of headaches, like that is happening right now. Okay, but I believe that we can, and kind of where I want to start taking us and say, okay, how can these methodologies grow? How can these methodologies level up, if you will, to helping us ask questions that can prevent wars, that can clean up the plastic in the ocean? I believe that that's true. I believe that we can start asking questions that drive innovation in ways that can really clean things up for us and can really take us into this kind of this new world that I think that we all want to live in, right? When it comes to making the invisible visible, this is what we do. This is like the core of what happens with our color-coded sticky notes. ORCA can help us expose the systemic issues in our software, for sure, in our corporate structures even, which is amazing. We can even take it that far, even in our organization systems of how our org chart is designed, okay? But I think it can also help us see the systemic issues in our governments, in our policies, in our ecosystems. If we can see how our ecosystems are set up or how our industrial systems are set up alongside ecosystems, we can get that clear X-ray vision. Then we can bring collaboration around it. If we can be the ones to be like, let everybody see, oh, that's what's happening. That thing is connected to that thing. Oh, shit. All right. And then we can bring all these beautiful minds together into collaboration, which again, ORCA is doing this. Object-oriented UX philosophies are doing this. We are bringing designers and developers together. We're bringing marketing in. We're bringing sales in a way that feels really good for everybody, in a way that amplifies everybody's expertise. Like it's awesome. It's a beautiful thing to see, and it's already happening. But how might we scale this skill set, right? To bring together other parties that have been historically at odds. Can we do that? Can we bring industries that haven't worked together before together? Can we bring countries together? What? Okay, these are big ideas that I'm bringing to you now. And I'm very curious to know how they're landing. So let me know. Okay, what is ORCA already doing? All right, finally, ORCA, of course, is helping us design naturally intuitive UX and avoiding our shapeshifters and our masked objects and our broken objects and our isolated objects and all those things that help people not feel dumb and help people use software very, very seamlessly, okay, and naturally, even our 80-year-old grandpa can just move through the space, right? Because it just works with how his brain works, all right? That is already happening. But what I would like to see and how I would like to grow our community and our practice is really just becoming the experts on human perception and behavior so that we can really advocate for designing ethically in a way that empowers human beings. And we can really expertly fight these toxic patterns that we know are happening, but we can just have much better ammunition, much better science on our side this is something that I really want to continue to lean into in the next couple of years. All this is really long-term, by the way. I don't know if I really said that. This is like, I'm thinking this is like my next 10 years right now that I'm talking to you about. So again, a lot of this stuff is already happening. And I feel like myself and my team and the community have laid amazing groundwork for this. But I am just seeing now how much bigger it can be and how much more we can bring our expertise to the big problems of the world today. Okay, let's go through these 5 things one more time, and I am going to talk to you about how this is actually good for business. Okay, so when we think about wrangling complexity, and we know how complex the world is getting, companies are going to start buckling under their own kludge. It's already happening. We are seeing it. Everything is getting buggier and buggier. We're getting more and more mad at these big companies that just are, they're not going back and like fixing their foundational bits and pieces, right? So we are seeing it already happen where companies are starting to buckle. They're having privacy issues, there's permissions issues, there's major bugs happening, they're bleeding money because the complexity has gotten too much and they've just been, putting one feature on top of the other feature and spackling over the complexity instead of getting into the foundational issues. So this gives you a great competitive edge if you fix your foundational issues, because a lot of companies are not. And we are going to see them buckling more and more and more, creating more disjointed and convoluted experiences that are going to actually get them into legal problems too, right? Because of the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. And so what we want, the companies of the future are not going to be disjointed and convoluted. All right. The companies that succeed in this future are going to be robust. They're not going to oversimplify, but what they are going to do is they're going to honor inherent complexity and make it as simple as it possibly can be without extraneous complexity. Those are the companies that are going to win. And the ORCA process and object-oriented UX helps companies do that. So when it comes to asking great questions, why is this so great? Like, why do we need that? Why do we need that? All right. So yes, we're going to save money and, not having a bunch of rework. That's great. But also being so much more intentional about what we put out there. So when we're asking these amazing questions, we're not just pushing things out the door and then having to maintain those things later, which is also very expensive. And then we end up with a lot of bloat in our products. What we want is we want our products and services to be intentional, not haphazard. And companies that are very, very intentional about what they bring to market and what they put out there, I believe are the ones that are going to survive long term. Again, these all connect, these all build on each other. But when it comes to that X-ray vision, to being able to see beneath the surface, companies that have strong foundations, strong foundational structures that they can then build upon that are rooted in the value that the users want, okay? So we're seeing lots of companies come out that are very surface level, that aren't very intentional, again, and clear on what are we actually delivering? What are the things of the user's mental model? How do those things connect? And how can we make sure to reflect that in a way that brings value to the users? So companies that are rooted clearly in the value that their customers actually want, that their customers actually are coming for, are going to succeed in the future, instead of surface level companies and people and companies that have a bunch of people working for them that are thinking at the surface level. Those companies, I don't believe, are going to survive long term in the world that we are seeing, right? In this world that needs big problem solving and there's just big challenges ahead, right? So the companies that are going to be able to rise to that challenge are not going to be the surface level companies. When it comes to bringing people together in collaboration, this is so good for business because this, as I said before, breeds innovation. When you get the different minds together and you get the mashing up and the remixes, right, of ideas and cultures and backgrounds and expertise, that is where you get innovation. So companies are going to need the type of people who know how to do that, who know how to UX the collaboration in a way that does level the playing field so everybody can bring their expertise and teams are amplifying each other. Teams are not, instead of, being on completely different wavelengths and canceling each other out, we want individuals and teams to be amplifying. So even within a team, but team to team as well. So this team isn't fighting this other team. These teams we're all working in lockstep toward the same goal with clarity, right? With our own individual expertise. This is what is going to create real innovation instead of that regurgitation of the same old thing. What are the competitors doing? What is AI telling us to do? This is how we're going to come up with new ideas. And new ideas are incredibly profitable. Number 5. I don't think I was numbering the last ones. Hopefully y'all are getting it. I think like I've said these 5 things multiple times, but I know it's hard when it's all verbal and not visual, and you don't see my little bullet points and my numbers. So the last one, number 5, this comes when I'm talking about really thinking about how the human brain works and honoring it instead of leveraging it for dollar bills. When it comes to this is where we get into trust and loyalty and true love from customers that really do feel empowered using a system, using a product, using a solution. I believe we're moving away from the short-term goals. We are seeing the repercussions of thinking quarterly, of thinking in short-term goals, and companies that can start thinking longer term and think about how in the long run does my product really integrate with humanity, with actual individual people and their families and their communities. Those companies are going to do really well because we need to stop thinking so short term. And I think it's happening. And I think what we're seeing now is at least now, do people have the skills for thinking long term? Do people have the skills for thinking about, okay, what is going to be truly something that our customers love in their heart of hearts, absolutely love? I don't think we have a lot of those skills, but I think we are recognizing the gap here. And we're recognizing, we have a lot of products here that just make us feel good in the short term or just make money in the short term, but do we have long-term sustainability? And so I believe creating apps and systems that are humane, that just work without the human brain works, it doesn't make people feel dumb, very important and wonderful. And we are doing that. How can we take it even a step further? How can we take it a step further so that we are creating systems that integrate with humanity, not just humans, but us as a collective and where we want to go? These are big questions and big ideas. And this is where I see this community going. I see my business going. This is where I see really the next, like I said, I think like the next 10 years or longer, right? Of how we can expand what we've already built in the last 10 years with object-oriented UX and the ORCA process, which does beautiful things for our software and for our apps and for our products. How can it do really, really beautiful things for the entire world, for what the world needs right now? And I think we are so positioned to do that. So if this all got you excited and this resonates with you and you feel like you are the kind of designer that wants to rise to this challenge, that you feel like you're already there. If you're already working with object-oriented UX and studying object-oriented UX, you're probably already feeling that. But if you're like, yes, more of this, yes, I want to rise to this, just don't go anywhere. Keep hanging out. Cohort 11, we have set a date for Cohort 11 for 2025, and that is September 8th. So make sure to go ahead and get on the wait list at OUX.com/certification if you want to get deep into this. And I will be bringing threads of everything I've talked about today. I'll be infusing it into Cohort 11 in all sorts of interesting ways as I continue to develop these ideas and think about how I can serve you better to rise to these challenges. And I'm sure you have ideas too on this, and I'm excited to hear them. So I hope to see you in Cohort 11. You can also go to OUX.com/training to just see what other things we've got going on as well. Soon, depending on when you're listening to this, we will also have the book out, X-Ray UX. We're typesetting right now. A lot of people already have it as sort of a beta release, but that is going to be available on the website soon too. So go to OUX.com, see what we've got going on there, and feel free to slide into my DMs, either in the forum at forum.OUX.com, join us there, or over on Instagram at SophiaVUX. Check out what I'm talking about over there and feel free to send me a message. So I hope this hit hard for you and really enjoy thinking about that question. I will repeat it one more time. What does the world need from the people you serve, and how can you help them rise to that challenge? Really sit with that one and let me know what you come up with. All right, y'all. Happy OUXing, and I love you so much, and I will see you in the forum or in cohort 11. Thank you so much for listening to the UX Level Up podcast. If you want to connect with me, Sophia, please follow me on Instagram at SophiaVUX, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Sophia Prater. I'm pretty easy to find there. Our music was brought to you by Ruby Vell, courtesy of Sugaroo Records. Thanks again for listening.